I am so excited. You need to sit back and relax. I am excited to have Kirk Jaffe here with me from Kirk Jaffe Consulting. And he is all about what? Getting you to that road to success. Hi, Kirk. Welcome.
Hey, Vicky, thank you for having me on the show.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what Kirk Jaffe does to get us to the road of success?
Yeah, well, the road to success is paved differently for everyone. My career really started about 35 years ago. I was a chef and transitioned from being chef on private yachts and in the best restaurants in the world. Moved out to California from the East Coast and got into real estate because I figured, what do you do in California to make money? You better get into real estate. So did that, ended up opening a business, running the third largest default loan servicer during 2008 to 2014 during the financial crisis. Spent time in Washington, D.C., working with the House Financial Services Committee to craft some of those regulations around the Dodd-Frank Act. And from there, went to work for myself. So Kirk Jaffe Enterprises and Tall Pines Consulting and we have 6 companies over here altogether. Um, but this is really about a lifelong of experience and helping people save that 25 to 30-year learning curve that you and I definitely have experienced over some of those road bumps, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Kurt, a lot of people in our audience are really trying to grow wealth. And it often feels like they're stuck, they can't move forward. So, one of my questions is, what are the biggest financial mistakes that keep people from building wealth and moving forward from your perspective?
Yeah, I think the biggest financial mistake is not staying a course. And so people jump from one thing to the next. They spend a lot of money making those jumps, but they don't actually master any one of the tools that they were out, seeking out to get. So I really tell people if you're gonna go into education. So when I started out in my business, I spent about $250,000 on sales education. I took every single sales training that was available anywhere I could find it. But that was my mandate. I was going to become a professional sales trainer, salesperson, and I was going to learn everything there was to know about it. And it took me about, 7 years to get through all that. And then it was marketing. And then I said, well, I need to learn how to market. So that was a 20-year experience, and I only focused on that. Obviously, keeping up licenses and day-to-day work, qualifications are always important, so we do those things too. But I think people need to get focused on one thing and finish it.
Now, that's an interesting perspective, getting focused and finishing it, especially when there's so much change around you.
Yeah.
So, how can someone start making smarter money decisions when the change is constant?
Yeah, I talk a lot about my consulting business, and we consult with all different kinds of companies, small businesses, doctors, restaurants. I mean, you name it, we're involved with them probably. Um, Principles. You have to have principles and how you make decisions and what that decision-making tree looks like, right, Vicky?
Hmm.
So I think a lot of times people go into it and they go, I want to be rich.
Hmm.
Okay, that's fine. I go into it and I say, I want to be rich because I'm going to be the best home builder in the country.
Hmm.
And I get real focused on what do I need to do to be the best home builder so I can make the
Hmm.
most money, right? And that's
Hmm.
one of our companies.
Hmm. Well, and because you have so many companies, I really want to ask this question. A lot of times, and you said this a second ago, okay, you need to be focused. But what if I have multiple capabilities, just like you have multiple with different businesses? How do I stay focused, but doing the things that I want to do of the portfolio that I enjoy doing it in?
Yeah, I have a very good friend who's older than me, and he asked me years ago, why are you doing so many things? You're doing too much. Get focused. I never understood what he was talking about, kind of what you're mentioning now, right? And what I learned over the years was this concept of do something until it's completed. So why do we have 6 companies? Because I have built, launched, and completed 6 companies. I didn't start one and then jump to the other and then jump to another and then jump to another. I put one in play. I made sure it can make money and create stability for me and my family. And then I started a complementary company. So to your point, all of my companies are integrated in my abilities,
Mhm.
right? Like I said, I spent, all those years running large finance companies and mortgage companies and real estate companies. And I was responsible to build 2,200 units at that time and oversee a portfolio of insurance on all these different properties that was, pushing multiple hundreds of millions of dollars.
Mhm.
So now today I can take my expertise in insurance analytics and work with my clients to make sure that they're getting the right insurance policies. I can build a single home because one home is very easy for me. I've done 2,200 at one time. So doing one means I'm really focused on that one. And I do that because these are high dollar luxury homes. But the interesting thing about it is I'm building and using modular technology.
Mhm.
So I shifted. I'm not a traditional home builder. And it took
Mhm.
me 7 or 8 years to learn factory built technology and all that goes with that. So again, get real focused and then integrate and dovetail your expertise into a bigger platform. Why do we want six companies? Multiple streams of income, right? Like, how do
Absolutely.
people get rich? Don't be dependent on one income source because the only thing I can guarantee you is something's going to shift in the world that's going to make one income source a problem. If you got six income sources, you'll probably be okay somewhere.
But I think that's what I'm really hitting on. So, for example, when I started my business, I used what I knew that I had done all my life in corporate. I was in technology and I was using technology to move forward. But as time started shifting and companies may not be hiring consultants as much or whatever, the opportunity allowed itself to pivot to be able to actually do a lot of leadership transformation simply because of the connections I was having and people wanting to transform their careers, transform what they wanted to do personally, etc. So I built another arm. Well, the first arm of technology didn't go away, it slowed down, but I built the other arm to leverage it out, right? Then, as times changed and things were happening, the people I was talking to found out they want to transform, but they want to start their own business. I said, da da, an opportunity. So I became a certified profit coach to actually help them start their business, take it from beginning to end, how to double, how to triple their revenue, how to use low cost strategies and be successful to get what they wanted, that time and financial freedom, right? But I never stopped the other two. So does that mean I should stop the other two and make different businesses? Or does that mean that that focus is off? I'd love your perspective.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like you've dovetailed, right? And the
Mhm.
most important word that you said in that explanation to me was pivot.
Yes.
Being able to recognize when something is working or when something is not working, it takes discipline to be able to pivot. I've had to pivot all the time, right? We always are pivoting.
Mhm.
Um, but again, if you take pivot and combine it with principles,
Yes.
so one of my principles is every one of my companies has to stand on its own 2 feet. It's like a
Mhm.
child.
Mhm.
So if one of my companies hits a roadblock, I can't overcome it. I can't find the resource. I just can't work it out. It's time to pivot. It doesn't mean shut down the company because
Right.
it'll come back around,
Right.
right? Because I opened it with a principle and an integrated concept of why we did it to begin with. So
Mhm.
we know there's value, but maybe we need to pivot for a moment and pick up something where we can leverage the environment that we're in to get something else done, move something else forward. I love that book, Who Moved My Cheese? Have you
Exactly.
seen that one, right?
Exactly.
Are you scurrying? Are you huffing and puffing? Or are you keeping your shoes, ready to go in case you need to run and pivot? And I think that's the lesson in there for sure.
So I really like the fact of the way how you talked about it's okay to pivot because I can't tell you the number of times I've had people say, "Oh, you're not focused." Yes, I am focused. Just because I pivoted doesn't mean that everything's the same. So there's a number one priority every time based upon what's happening around me. But if I didn't have the opportunity to do that, I'd have been left with nothing when things changed because I wasn't ready. But because I was ready, I have opportunities to pivot in multiple directions. And I think that's important when we start talking about wealth. And that leads me to another question. What are some of the simple habits that lead to long-term financial success that you would give to others?
Yeah. The simple habits are spend less than you make. Uh, Put away money into savings and find ways to force some of that savings. So I use insurance policies as one of my investment strategies. The reason I like it is because it's a bill that's paid every month, and I don't think about it. But when I look at the account, there's a whole bunch of cash in it. So spend less than you make, put away automatically into wherever things you can. And if you're going to invest in things like the stock market, that's fine too. But again, have principles. You know, Warren Buffett, the greatest investor in the United States in the last 100 years or so, um, only has like what, 12 companies that he invests in, right? It's not a huge thing. And he holds his companies for a long time. He buys when there's trouble, he sells when they're doing great. So have some discipline, put money away automatically, and also surround yourself with people that are high net worth or succeeding in whatever they're doing to save their money and grow their money. So, you know, we're a product of the top five people we hang around, right? So hang around people that are highest quality, and you will end up creating highest quality investments and savings too.
Well, I love how you said that it's the top five people we hang around, right? And I think that's really important in terms of setting our mindset, understanding that we're all aligned and how do we get there and how do we make sure that when we're looking for high ticket item clients that we're not hanging around people that are low ticket item clients that don't understand, right?
Right.
That really putting yourself in the circle that's going to allow you to prosper. And I think that's so important because our environment is an influence and a feeder to our brain. It gives our brain food, right? It nourishes it by whom we're around and what we're doing as we continue to move forward. So I think, you're hitting on something that financial growth also is not only manifesting, but you manifest when you put yourself in around positive people and other people who think the same way so that you're all going in that positive direction together.
Yeah. And don't
Kirk,
forget,
we're
it's
going
not.
to take a station break. And when we come back, I'm going to pick up on this conversation. We'll be right back. Boy, are we having a great conversation with Kirk Jaffe. We're talking about overcoming financial roadblocks. And during this segment, we're going to even expand it into making smart investment choices. Now, Kirk, in today's environment, and we know all the things that are happening around us, things that we don't have control over, things that are just going on in our world and in our economy. And people want to invest their money wisely. They want to move forward, but it feels overwhelming and too risky to do anything. What are the top things to consider before making an investment as we're facing these challenging times today?
It's a great question. It's a challenging question. I like it. I would say, again, have a strategy, principled strategy of how you're going to make your investments. Um, there's a concept called dollar cost averaging, which I think is hugely important. It doesn't matter if you're investing in stocks or a business or whatever. How much money can you afford to put into your investment on an ongoing, regular basis? The concept of compounding interest is hugely important in this kind of thinking. It
Mhm.
doesn't take a lot of contribution. It takes good compounding interest and a good bit of time, and things start to grow. And you could find even putting $100 away a month for 10 years with 10% compounding interest is going to turn into a lot of money, right? And so I think that's one of the things. If you're looking to invest a greater amount of money, say you have a couple $100,000 to invest, um, I would say it's really about getting to know the people that you're investing with, building that relationship. We take investors here when we're building our custom homes out here in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. But I insist on bringing everybody here to meet me in person. So I fly them in. I meet with them, I show them the project, I introduce them to the architects and all the people that we're working with so that they know where to find me, right? You don't want to be investing with people that are behind the golden screen, so to speak, in my opinion. So that keeps you out of trouble if you get to know people, and it doesn't mean an investment's always going to win or lose, but you have a better chance if you can see it, touch it, feel it, and really understand it, and then mitigate some of that downside risk wherever you can, right?
So, because you do things and they meet you personally, which I love that concept. I mean, I love the fact that you're saying if you're going to invest in this project with me, I want you here. Is it better to invest in projects rather than investing in the market? Because it ain't like we're going to be able to go meet everybody that we're investing in the stock market. So help me understand how to evaluate the different the both aspects so I'm making the smartest decision possible.
Yeah, I've learned over the years to invest in what I understand. So when I was younger and I was a chef, as I said, I was maybe 22 years old, I was a day trader. And I was getting up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning and reading every prospectus about every company and doing the day trading and all this stuff. And I would work from, 4 a.m. till about 9 a.m. when I had to go off to the restaurant and work. And I just got destroyed. And the reason I got destroyed is because I didn't really understand this basic concept. You invest in the market. Whatever you think you're investing in today in the market actually happened probably 6 months earlier, if that makes sense. Imagine, Vicky, you work with a lot of big companies.
Yes.
Before they roll out a concept, they
Yep.
have a whole bunch of meetings and plans and budgets and thinking and higher level approvals, and possibly it goes to the board. All that happened before the thing happened that you saw on TV or read in the paper that this company is doing big things. It already happened. So I prefer to be at the leading edge of these conversations to really understand what was the thinking that went into the decision making process. And then I can get aligned with it or I can walk away from it. Very hard to do that when you're dealing with the stock market and public companies and things like that. Nearly impossible. I read this morning actually, why is Warren Buffett so successful in his investing strategy? One reason, he owns so many big segments of the economic part of this country that he's getting real-time feedback from all his different companies. So he can see what's going on in the shipping and the railroad industries and the airline industries and the banking industries before any of us because he's getting the data real time. Well, we don't have that luxury. So I would say for me, I invest in real estate because I understand real estate. I also invest in digital currency, but really more on the infrastructure of blockchain. I believe the infrastructure is going to be needed in this country. So
Yes.
I've invested in something that I believe is going to happen, but probably not for 10 or 15 years. So I don't even look at it. I put the
Mhm.
money in and I'm waiting. Um, and that's how I do those. Otherwise, it's look for the base hits. Not everything's a home run. Be willing to invest in things that you can. If you're going to invest in the stock market, as an example, it's tough to do it. You want to be in it for at least a year, right? Otherwise, you have the
Mhm.
the real time tax
Right.
liability, right?
Right.
So you can be a day trader potentially, but really, for a normal human in this country, better to do it long term, at least 12 months, right?
Mhm.
So I look for opportunities to build new companies, to buy new companies, or buy old companies, I should say. A lot of baby boomers are selling their companies right now. These are great cash flowing assets that you can buy for the same amount you might put in the stock market.
Mhm.
So, and then you have a cash flowing situation that you can get that money to continue to invest in different places. So I buy companies. I look for things that I know, like real estate, which I'm an expert at. I really understand those things.
Mhm.
And a little bit of forward looking, what do I believe the country needs down the road? And that's pretty much my principles on how I invest.
Wow. What are some of the smart investments people often overlook that they should be paying attention to now that we're talking about how to make those investments?
Yeah, I think that the highest yielding investments are the ones that are the most boring, right? So,
Wow. Explain that a little bit further when you talk about the most boring. I think that's very interesting.
right? So think about, waste management, right? A huge industry.
Hmm.
Uh, Not very sexy. kind of
Right.
dirty, right? Um, but it makes tons of money, and everyone is going to keep creating garbage. So it's going to be an ongoing problem,
Right.
right? Anything in the waste management industry. Uh, house building, again, I think one of the things that we buy are landscaping companies
Hmm.
because the grass is going to keep growing. The trees are going to need to be treated, right? AI is not going to solve the landscaping business problems, right? And by the way, neither did artificial grass. Out in California, I lived in California 25 years. They encouraged people to put in artificial grass to save water. But then 15 years later, they came back and said, everyone has to take the artificial grass out because now we found out it's causing cancer. So, you know, I prefer just regular old grass, right? And we'll mow it, we'll take care of it, and that's the best thing. So I look for those opportunities that are not pie in the sky. Um, there's always people coming around going, I got the newest, greatest AI concept, or I got the newest, greatest, disruptive concept. It goes into this idea, and I know you'll appreciate this, Vicky. You got, sneezers, early adopters, late
Hmm.
adopters,
Hmm.
never adopters, right? And that
Yep.
bell curve that goes with it.
Exactly. Hmm.
I'm not a sneezer. I'm a late stage early adopter. It's kind of where I sit in that cycle. So people come to me all the time with new ideas, and I just thank you. I'll keep an eye on it. I'm probably not going to be your type of investor for a little while until I see some things line up. So again, principles.
Yeah. And again, I love the principles that you're giving as a foundation because I too believe in the fact that if you're going to growth, and I'm all about generational wealth. I'm all about wealth building. I'm all about, seeing things grow and develop and help the community, et cetera, as we're moving forward. But I also believe that it's important that when we're doing an investment, that we also look at a portfolio of investments. Now, to that point, I'd love for you to leave with my audience some things about how to create a strong investment portfolio, even when you're first starting out. I'm just getting started. Let's pretend I'm just beginning and
Yeah,
doing this portfolio. What would you say are some of the things that you want to make sure that you do to create a strong one?
exactly. And this is a great question. There's a couple of different ways I can think about this. One is I look at investing like a chair. So you've got four legs in your chair. You want cash, and to me,
Mm-hmm.
cash is cash, stocks, bonds, all that's cash at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day for me. You have
Mm-hmm.
businesses, you have insurance, and you have real estate. So, in building a long-term investment portfolio, balance your legs. You don't want to be too heavy on the cash side because the insurance side could fall over if you're missing that leg of the chair. So you want to build things up in a reasonable way. Also look for cross benefits. There are benefits in the real estate industry and owning businesses that are, contradictory, if you will, to what you find in the insurance industry or just the straight cash industry being stocks, bonds, and short-term earnings and cash earnings, right? Also W-2 income. Um, so I would say balance that share out is the first thing. The second thing is have a short, medium, and long-term vision for any portfolio. So if you're buying bonds, they call it laddering. And it's this idea of buying bonds that come to maturity at different times. So there's always another set rolling over that can be withdrawn from that investment piece, or it can be rolled back into now the lower rung of the ladder and keep growing. Um, I love the idea of laddering not only bonds but also businesses and having that long-term, medium-term, and short-term vision for what can a business really do and how much work is it going to take to turn that business over so that and cash contribution too to make it really perform at its highest level, which is something I know you're an expert at.
Yeah.
So, right.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate that. Now, in the last minute before we go, this is something that's near and dear to my heart in terms of informing our viewers, and I'd love for you to give your perspective. What are some of the common investment scams or traps people should avoid?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. The common investment scams. I would say anything that gets you too excited, gets your heart beating really loud, probably is designed to get you feeling that, decisions are made emotionally most of the time, right?
Mhm.
So For me, anything that's get rich quick is probably not for me. Timeshares generally don't work out. They can be good for families that have a pattern of traveling or things like that and want to invest that way. But I generally would stay away from timeshares. Land banking can be interesting and challenging because you have to understand where you're land banking, because you can get stuck. Another thing I've seen is municipal tax or real estate tax sales. People go in and they go, "Oh, I'm going to make a ton of money buying a property on a tax failure, from the county." But they don't realize a lot, every county has different rules, and a lot of states have 15-year redemption. So you could buy that property off the tax rolls, and 7 years down the road, they come back and go, "Oh, sorry, we're taking our property back now." So you made zero. There's a lot of complication in investing in mortgage notes and land banking and these things. You really have to be an expert or align yourself with an expert if you want to invest in those areas. Otherwise, for most people, I'd say skip it.
Well, I have true, boy, let me tell you, Kirk, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And I know you have left my audience with some nuggets that they can use. And I can't thank you enough for being on the show. Thank you so much for all your wisdom and knowledge.
Thanks, Vicky. Great to be here.
Well, thank you so much. And let me tell you, audience, I hope you will go back and listen if you missed any part of this. Thank you so much for joining the show of Ignite, where we keep the fire burning. See you until next time.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.